a fantastic performance that was. Now, just before you jump into any conclusion, that was not karate or kung fu. That was a traditional Vietnamese martial art technique called Bạch Mã at the Việt Vũ Đạo School. Now, despite the fact that Vietnam is only a small country, it's managed to attract over 1 million followers from all around the world to follow Vietnamese martial arts. So what's the reason behind this curious case? Let's find out in this edition of Talk Vietnam.
For thousands of years, martial arts have been forged within the Vietnamese culture, inspired by the everyday life of a Vietnamese farmer and tested by nature. Struggles against invaders have been its strength. And now, the rich history and heroic moves have become a sport loved by millions across 5 continents of the world.
As you could see, traditional Vietnamese martial art fever has spread all around the world. But to make this happen, we must not forget the masters behind it. And today we have the honor of gracing one of them. Meet Grandmaster Nguyễn Công Tốt, the French-Vietnamese Grandmaster that is the founding member of Việt Vũ Đạo International. Thank you for joining us. So could you please share with us, how did you manage to attract so many foreigners, so many international disciples?
Oh, it's not a very difficult transaction, because I help our traditional martial arts building with Vietnamese culture, Vietnamese tradition, and it's the best way to attract a lot of people.
Yep. Could you please explain the meaning of Việt Vũ Đạo?
Việt Vũ Đạo, Viet for Vietnamese. Vũ is an ancient naming of Võ meaning martial art, and Dao is the way we choose, the commitment to practice martial art. We use our traditions, like is the cult of ancestors, the great sense of family. It's the best way to bring our culture all around the world.
So about Việt Vũ Đạo in particular, can you explain the origin of it and where it actually came from?
Việt Vũ Đạo is a martial arts school. It comes from Vũng Tàu, Bà Vũng Tàu. It's a very little village. Initially, maybe 100 years ago, this school is only a very little school with one a master, an old master, with only a few practitioners, and we bring our story all around the world using the family sense, the Vietnamese culture in order to develop. And we know that foreigners don't only choose sports to have a sport, but they want to discover something more. And so Vietnamese culture is by itself a very good way to practice philosophy and to practice their mind. And so that's the reason they choose Việt Vũ Đạo.
You mentioned how Việt Vũ Đạo is originated from Vũng Tàu. What local traits or elements have been brought into the techniques and the moves used by Việt Vũ Đạo?
Yes, our techniques are inspired by the farmers' techniques. You know, in the rice field, they have to pick up the rice growing, and so they are with a black trouser, and they are in white hair because of the sun, you know, and they have a black trouser because it's very dirty. Rice field is very dirty. Their techniques to pick up the rice grow, we use this technique and develop to transform it in martial arts techniques.
Born in 1954 in Saigon, Nguyễn Công Tuất was a disciple of Master Ngot, who initiated him into the Vietnamese martial art techniques and its philosophical concepts. In 1963, his family moved to France and Tuất worked as a lawyer. After mastering many sects of traditional martial arts, in 1970, Tuất established a new sect, namely Việt Vũ Đạo, based on the techniques and principles of Vietnamese martial arts. Thanks to his contribution, Việt Vũ Đạo has become one of the 5 biggest sects of Vietnamese martial arts in the world, with around 3,000 practitioners in Europe alone. In France, Việt Vũ Đạo has 50 clubs with the participation of 1,500 students. Nowadays, Việt Vũ Đạo exists in 20 countries around the world, including Brazil, Portugal, India, Australia, Germany, Mali, Armenia, and Spain. To honor his contribution, Tuất was awarded the title of an International Grand Master of Vietnamese Martial Arts and selected as the Vice Chairman of the World Federation of Vietnamese Martial Arts in 2015.
So can you tell us about your journey teaching traditional Vietnamese martial arts in Europe? How did it all begin?
It was quite hard, you know. Compared to another people, European people, we are little, but we have a very big heart. And we are very confident regarding our culture. We know that our Vietnamese culture is something very strong, and European people do know that. And so these people choose Vietnamese martial arts because it's very different compared to judo, karate, because it's only a fighting discipline, you know. And Vietnamese martial art explain and remind for every people that before fighting we have to have a good thinking. When you fight someone, maybe you will kill him. Is it the price to pay only for a little difficulty? We have to think for what will happen. And you know, it's a characteristic of Việt Vũ Đạo.
So can you tell me more about the history of Việt Vũ Đạo International? How did it begin?
It begins in France. It's about the beginning of 70s. We only have a little club, with some students. The year after, 2 of my students open new clubs. One go to Germany, one go to Spain, and so on, you know. And so 10 years after, we have clubs in Germany, in Italy, in Spain, in Great Britain.
So what part of the Vietnamese culture or history have your students learned through Việt Vũ Đạo?
They have to learn about our old ancient history. Our students know all about Hai Ba Trung, about Thăng Long, about the edification of Vietnamese country, because this part of our culture is very important as the techniques, you know. And so all of our professors, masters of Việt Vũ Đạo, are very informed about our history. And it's the best way.
Thanks for joining our show. Your insights have really inspired me a lot as a young Vietnamese person. We hope to see you again soon in the future, and good luck with your future endeavours.
I will be there.
Thank you. So now that we've heard the inspiring stories, time to meet the disciples of Grandmaster Tốt. Thanks guys for showing us how awesome our traditional martial arts could be. However, Việt Vũ Đạo is not the only traditional Vietnamese martial arts that's inspiring many international followers around the world. The following story will tell you about what it means, what traditional Vietnamese martial arts truly means to many international disciples.
In the middle of August, hundreds of martial arts athletes from all over the world gather in Hanoi in the most important event of the Vietnam traditional martial arts this year. The Vietnam Võ Cổ Truyền International Festival. With more than 400 performances and about 90 battles, the biennial event has become a place for athletes to compete and share the experience.
It's a really martial spirit. It's really great to see that there are so many different people and technicities, and it's really great to see that.
It was very, very great to share this moment with Vietnam people and people who like martial art in the world. So for us, it's a very, very good experience, and it's a very, very motivation for us.
The event also marked the establishment of the World Federation of Vietnamese Martial Arts, a body for those who love Vietnam's Võ Cổ Truyền. According to Chairman Hoàng Vĩnh Giang, the federation will serve as a foundation to further promote the values of Vietnamese martial arts.
Ở nước ngoài cũng có những cái bài quyền, cũng có những cái phương pháp tập luyện mà ở trong nó không có đâu. Do vậy cho nên là ở khắp thế giới, nơi nào mà có võ Việt Nam được dạy bởi người Việt Nam hoặc là người nước ngoài được học từ những thầy Việt Nam, thì đấy là một cái cơ sở, đấy là những cái môi trường để chúng ta phát triển, nâng cao, và đồng thời có thể là từ đó lan tỏa đi những nước, những địa danh mà chưa có võ cổ truyền Việt Nam.
Attending the event, athletes, referees and spectators vary in language and nationality, but they all share a love for Vietnamese traditional martial arts. Valeria is currently a member of the Tinh Võ Đạo Martial Arts School in Russia. She and her younger brother Artem have learned Vietnamese martial arts from their father since they were children. Having lost their mother early, Valeria and Artem grew up with Vietnamese martial arts, which has become a part of their life.
Although the võ đạo is one among Vietnamese martial arts, but to us, it plays an indispensable role, is as important as family and our career.
In addition to our major job, we also work as martial art teachers at schools and open our own classes for children with about 200 learners. Through the classes, we also want to introduce Vietnamese culture to Russian children.
This is the second time that Valeria has joined a Vietnamese martial arts competition in Vietnam. Previously, she was awarded the title of Miss Martial Arts at the Vietnamese martial arts competition in 2012. She still remembers her feelings when she first came here.
Before going to Vietnam, I was really anxious. I spent 1 year and a half to prepare for the trip. I wanted to show that though I'm Russian, I'm not inferior to Vietnamese counterparts. Then when I went to Binh Dinh and Ho Chi Minh City, seeing the friendliness, cultures of Vietnamese and especially exchanging with the Vietnamese athletes, I felt that my anxiety beforehand was not necessary.
Held on an international scale, the festival draws the participation of foreign referees. They are not only experienced and knowledgeable, but also passionate about Vietnamese martial arts. Emerick Morris is one of these people.
My name is Emerick Morris. I'm 23 years old now. I was born in a small city named Pau in Aquitaine province, southwest of France. My major is entrepreneurship, but my whole life passion is martial arts. At 14 years old, I came to know about Kung Fu Binh Dinh, a school of Vietnamese martial art set up by Master François Pavat Chang Tang in the 70s. I quickly fell in love with it and decided to follow one of his disciples, Master Inchala Hazi. I've been practicing Vietnamese vocal trance ever since. And now I'm happy to be in Vietnam to get to know more about vocal trance and Vietnamese culture in general.
You've seen the man checked out his move and learnt about his passion for traditional Vietnamese martial arts, so why don't we meet the man himself? Hey Emerick, so could you please tell me how it all started for you with martial arts?
So I started martial arts when I was in France at 14 years old. I was 14 years old. I started to practice in a school named Kung Fu Binh Dinh. When I was young, I was quite aggressive. I could become angry very quickly, and so I felt that I had to change something to feel better. And I think that the practice of Kung Fu Binh Dinh after a few years helped me to make a lot of changing about it, have a better personality maybe, have more open mind. I think it's the most important point, beside building for me a strong body and a strong mind. Too.
Studying martial arts, what do your family and friends think and how have they supported you?
For the family and for the friends it's quite difficult because I train every day, so sometimes I don't understand how I can train so much. They don't understand that passion sometimes. In my family, no one practiced martial arts, so for them it was very new. I think with martial art I lost many friends because I spent a lot of time training. Sometimes I had to cancel meetings, so it's quite difficult. Yeah.
So what sort of challenges did you experience when you first started Kung Fu Binh Dinh and how did you overcome it?
The most challenges was to deal with the Asian philosophy, very important in Kung Fu Binh Dinh. Work with the stances because I had to handle the stance during a long time. And the teacher was a really good teacher and always made us stay humble. I think it's the most important for him to stay humble. So a lot of kind of challenges.
So patience is a virtue, right? I could only probably do 5 minutes. So how do you manage to do it?
About the stance, it depends. Have many different ways to practice the stance. You can work with a very low stance and handle maybe 5 minutes. But after that, you can practice a lower stance, more free, so you can stay maybe more than 1 hour. My maximum was 1 hour.
So what do you think about when you do all the stance?
Difficult because have to think about nothing. Because when you work with the stance during a long time, it is the same if you are trying to meditate. Your brain works the same if you are meditating, so you really don't think about something special. Just try to handle the most time possible.
So you can't really think about anything, you can't listen to music. So what's the secret behind this patience of martial arts?
The secret, I think, first is the passion, because if we don't have the passion, we can't work correctly. The other secret, I think, is to practice every day. I think is the most important.
You thought Kung Fu Bing Ding and Kung Fu were basically the same, but you learned about its differences later on. Can you share with us these differences?
Yeah, of course. It's really hard to talk about the differences, because even in Vietnamese martial art and Bing Ding, there are a lot of different schools. Everything is just different. It's different strategies, but the main difference is Bing Ding was a martial art created for the army, for the war, for the battlefield, for the soldiers. It has to be effective, it has to be learned quite quickly, and make also the soldiers have a good strength on the body. I think it's the main difference.
So you mentioned earlier that the traditional Vietnamese martial arts actually benefit the people that are smaller. Can you explain how this works for Vietnamese martial arts called Bing Ding Kung Fu?
It's simple. The general principles is to not against the strength with the strength. If some people will use the strength, we will use smoothness. If they use smoothness, we will use strength. And we will also use that special footstep to escape the center line, go at 45 degrees on the sides, and strike where the opponents don't expect us to strike. This is how small people can handle a battle with higher soldiers or higher opponents.
So you mentioned the difference of how Bing Ding martial arts is supposed to be for soldiers, right? What makes these techniques so special? What are the characteristics of Bing Ding martial arts?
About the Bing Ding martial art, the main characteristic is the use of the elbow and the knees, the use of the one finger strike, the work with the stance, also the footwork to always escape the attacks. I think is the main characteristic of Bing Ding martial arts. And of course the work with weapons, really important too.
So how about the finger joints? How do you actually use it? And how does it work?
The finger joint, we will strike every part of the opponent's body who are weaker. For example, the joints, the big muscles, there the shoulders, the leg, there the plexus, the throat too, the eyes. The objective is when we strike to the arm of the leg, is the opponent can't use that leg during all the fight. It will make him hurt so much and he will not be able to use it again.
Okay, enough said. I reckon I can still beat you considering I'm like twice your size. So let's go for a punch on. All right, spring it. You're going down, mate. So now that you've seen me fail gloriously, you may want to see a bit more competition, and there's only one way to find out. Let's check out how the professionals actually do it. So tell me, what triggered your curiosity about the history of Bình Định martial arts, and what did you find out?
I started to, I wanted to learn more about the Bình Định story when I came in Vietnam, because I made some researches and I found that the history was really important, because Bình Định martial art helped the Vietnamese to fight against foreigners who wanted to invade Vietnam. So I think the story is important, and when we have to see the great names of the Bình Định martial arts. For example, the three Tyson brothers, the Quang Trung general, but also a lot of other generals like Li Taito and others who are good generals and also good martial art practitioners. I think it's really important. They are really smart with strategy, is also an important point. So for me, when I read all this story about these great people, I feel some kind of proudness because I practice Vietnamese martial arts.
So you made 2 visits to Bình Định to learn about it. Can you explain what you found and what happened during these journeys, and why?
Yeah, so I made just 2 trips in Bình Định, in Quy Nhơn City. The first was 3 days, the second was 5 days. What I learned, I visit many different schools in Bình Định. In Quy Nhơn, I visited the province team, so really high level of practicing. I visited the Long Phuoc Pagoda, it's very famous too, and I visit some little schools in Han Thai. And this is how I could become aware of the differences between Bình Định martial art and Chinese martial arts. And it was really interesting to see how the province looks like too, because I think it's important to imagine how people trained before. We have to see how the province look like. And when we see the province, there are a lot of forests, a lot of mountains. So I think it played an important role of practicing.
For the last 2 years, this wooden dummy has been Emirec's training partner at each of his Vĩnh Xuân Quyền training sessions at Tứ Liên Temple in Hanoi. After more than 10 years practicing the martial arts of Bình Định, last year he moved to Vietnam to explore a new style, Vĩnh Xuân Quyền. 7 days a week, martial arts have become an essential part of his life.
I feel that Vĩnh Xuân, I will be able to practice it until I am very, very old. It's more than a passion. It became more a way of life maybe, because now I don't need to focus and say, okay, I have to train. Now the training is part of my life. I don't have to think about it. I know that I will train every day and don't have to think about it.
Emirec's passion has also inspired many of his classmates.
Còn Emeric thì đã tập không lâu lắm rồi nhưng mà vẫn có thể tập được rất là giỏi. Động tác của bạn Emeric rất là mềm, rất là thả lỏng. Cái một điều rất khó trong Vĩnh Xuân Quyền. Em cũng muốn tập được giỏi như Emeric.
Emeric là một người rất có năng khiếu về võ, có sự đam mê và cái lòng quyết tâm để tập luyện những cái bài quyền khó và những cái động tác khó, thì cũng cố gắng tập luyện để vượt qua được cái sự khó khăn.
Mặc dù mình là thầy của Emeric nhưng mà mình thực sự là rất tôn trọng, và các bạn tập đây cũng rất là ngưỡng mộ anh ta, cái sự đam mê võ thuật của anh ta. Cũng rất hiếm người mà bây giờ mà bỏ tất cả công việc ở bên gia đình, tất cả sự nghiệp bên kia để mà sang đây để theo 1 năm trời liên tục, thì tôi nghĩ rằng là đấy là cái mà nói lên cái sự đam mê thực sự của anh ấy.
It is this passion that gained him the trust of his master. granting him the position of teaching assistant at the Vĩnh Xuân Nguyễn Gia Club.
So having been in Vietnam for 1 year now, can you tell us more about what you're doing here, especially with Vĩnh Xuân School?
Yeah, of course. So I started to practice Vĩnh Xuân 2 years ago. My first trip, I stayed 5 months in Vietnam. I practiced Vĩnh Xuân during 5 months. And I came back in Vietnam for Vĩnh Xuân too, for 1 year. Vĩnh Xuân is quite different from other martial arts schools. It's a Chinese school. It came in Vietnam in 1936. Tekong bring that school in Vietnam. It's really deep martial arts, really special. A lot of philosophy inside, and it requires a lot of softness in the muscles. It's really different from Binding because Binding will use more strength with the muscles. Vĩnh Xuân is maybe more smart, and so it will use the body structure and the softness in the muscles.
So you mentioned how you feel really proud now that you've learned about all this history and the martial arts behind it. Can you tell us more about how much you love traditional martial arts now and how it sort of influences your life values as well?
Yeah, of course. For me it's really important because martial arts help about 3 important points. To have good health is important, the spiritual part is really important too, and of course the self-defense, because nothing is sure and we have to defend sometimes to get attacks. But I feel that people who learn Vietnamese martial arts should, they have a kind of mission, and this mission is to preserve these martial arts because it is really important in Vietnam history. We see today that most Vietnamese in Vietnam practice foreign martial arts like Taekwondo, like Karate, Judo and others, and sometimes they know nothing about their own martial art, and I think it's really sad because these martial arts are really interesting, really effective, and the history behind is really important.
So you practice martial arts every day, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it supposed to be a violent or aggressive kind of sport? How do you keep the balance?
When we practice, it's not the same if you practice a fight sport like boxing or something like that. It's really different because when you fight in Binding, it's not a game. You can use dangerous techniques, and you know that this technique is dangerous, so have to stay humble in your head. And we see that all people who practice martial arts, the people who don't stay humble, we see that they go out from the school very early in general.
You talk about being humble. How do you sort of humble yourself down when you're in an aggressive situation? And can you share a story with us?
Yeah, of course. So yes, I've been aggressed in Vietnam 2 years ago. And from what I learned about this aggression, the most important is to control the mind. And Binding have specific exercises for that. The exercises with breathing. And so when you do this, when you think about breathing, when you are in that kind of difficult situation, you can keep an open mind and open vision, so you can be more smart to defend yourself. You will not panic or you will not scare, you will think. This is the most important.
So you have to sort of teach in classes. Can you tell us about your experiences teaching the younger and newer generations of martial arts?
So 2 years ago I passed the coach exam with the Hanoi Martial Arts Federation, and since that time my master made me teach to new people who come. So For me, it was a good experience. About the techniques, it's really interesting because when you teach something, it makes you learn more about this thing. You see more about the details. Sometimes you miss some details, so it's really interesting. Yeah.
I'm aware that you were chosen as a referee for this year's International Vietnamese Martial Arts Championship. Tell us more about this experience.
It was an idea of my new master in Vietnam, Master Phi. I choose this to be international referee to know more about the different schools in the festival, because by being referee I can be very close to the practitioner, the masters and the fightings, because I see the fightings from very close distance. So I could learn even more about the different schools of martial arts, about all the provinces in Vietnam, and about how the foreigners like me from other countries practice martial arts.
So what impact do you think these kinds of events will have on the international community and foreigners who study Vietnamese martial arts?
I hope it will make the Vietnamese martial arts become more famous all around the world, and also help to preserve all the different traditional schools of Vietnamese martial arts.
So why do you think traditional Vietnamese martial arts has become such a global phenomenon?
I think one of the main reasons is that Vietnamese martial arts stay quite traditional. In Vietnamese martial arts we still have a lot of different schools, and the interesting point is that people with that different schools can find the schools who's more suitable for himself. I think it's really interesting for people.
Speaking of choosing the suitable school for themselves, why should one pick traditional Vietnamese martial arts over karate or kung fu, the more famous martial arts around the world?
I think the karate today and the taekwondo is more sport now than a martial art. It is suitable for the competitions, so people maybe are looking for something more authentic, with a huge story behind, a huge culture and philosophy will go with. So I think Vietnamese martial arts for that will have a great future.
So looking into the future, what is your future plan with traditional Vietnamese martial arts?
So I studied Binding in France, and 2 years ago I started to learn Wing Chun, and I still hope to learn Wing Chun for many years later, because I fall in love with that martial art too. It's really interesting. I talked about that with my Vietnamese master, Master Phi, about Wing Chun, and we plan in future to open a branch of the school in France to make the Vietnamese Wing Chun famous in France.
So your insights have made me feel really proud as a young Vietnamese person, and I realise the importance of traditional Vietnamese martial arts in the culture. And you, as our international audience, have learnt about the beauty of our culture through Vietnamese martial arts. So, why don't you have a shot yourself, and who knows, next year we might see each other at the championship. Thanks for watching this edition of Talk Vietnam, and until next time.